What we're going to be talking about is individual retirement accounts. Everybody has the ability to use these if you qualify. So there's really two main types. There is an IRA, which is pre-tax, and there's a Roth IRA, which is basically just post-tax. The benefits of them are this. So if you do a pre-tax IRA, then what that means is you're saying, I'm going to choose to reduce my taxable income today. So the max is $7,000. If you choose to put $7,000 in, it reduces your taxable income by $7,000. So let's say you make $100, you put in $7, your taxable income is now $93,000. And so you save $7,000 times by your marginal tax rate. So let's say you had a 10% marginal tax rate, you'd save $700. But this is just a deferral. After that, that money grows tax deferred. And then in the future, you're going to withdraw that and you're going to pay income taxes on it. Now, on the other hand, there's Roth IRAs. And with Roth IRAs, you're choosing to put money in post-tax. So if you say, hey, I want to put $7,000 in, I'm going to put it in post-tax. So your taxable income is still $100,000, no changes there. The difference is this $7,000 gets to grow tax-free and can be used tax-free in the future. I want to first start with contribution limits. I said this before, but the contribution limit is $7,000 per year unless you are over the age of 50. If you're over the age of 50, then you can do an extra $1,000 per year, so $8,000. Pretty simple. With either of these, you do need earned income to use this. You have to make at least $7,000 to be able to contribute, but if you make too much, you might not be able to contribute. So let's start with IRAs, the pre-tax IRAs. If you make under $126,000 in 2025 and you're married, then you can contribute and deduct these contributions. And the number is $79,000 if you're single. If you make above that, there's this little threshold where you have partial phase out and then you fully can't contribute at just a little bit above that. We don't need to go into those two numbers. Typically, if you're in the phase out period, it typically starts to not really make any sense. But know that if you do not have a work plan. So if you don't have a 401k or any other employer-sponsored plan, that this income phase out goes away and you can still contribute and deduct it. Let's talk about the benefits. The benefits are really this. You get tax-deferred growth, income, interest, et cetera, on a yearly basis is not taxable. You can sell and have a capital gain. That's not taxable. You don't pay tax until you distribute in retirement. You can't take the money out until 59 and a half. There are some ways to get it out beforehand, but generally, if you do take it out beforehand, you're going to pay a 10% penalty and income taxes. The other thing that people don't understand is with pre-tax accounts, you have RMDs in the future. Starting at age 73, you have to take distributions from this account. All RMD stands for is required minimum distributions. So let's say you turn 73, what's going to happen is they're going to look at all your pre-tax accounts. They're going to basically divide it by your life expectancy, and that's what you're going to be required to take out per year, even if you don't need it. So let's say you need $10,000 a month of income. You and your spouse's Social Security get you to $10,000. You don't need any more. Doesn't matter. You're taking these RMDs, it's going to push you up in tax brackets, which might not be advantageous. There is a lot of tax planning that you can do around this. But really the big issue with pre-tax accounts is you need a plan on the taxes. In my belief, the goal is to get as much Roth money as you can, but that doesn't mean you have to do that on a yearly basis. You can get there through Roth conversions and Roth contributions in the right year, because the issue is we'll have a lot of people, they'll reduce their taxes and they'll do pre-tax accounts forever. They're going to get to retirement and they're going to have $10 million in this pre-tax account, even though they're going to have a taxable account that's doing pretty well, Social Security, et cetera. And they're going to have this huge tax issue because they're going to have all this forced income to them, even though they didn't need it. Now let's go into Roth IRAs. So with Roth IRAs, the income limits are a little higher. If you make under $236,000 as a married person, you can fully contribute. And if you make under $146,000 as a single person, then you can fully contribute. All that means is you can do the full $7,000 and let that be invested and grow tax-free. Some of the benefits are tax-free growth, right? So like if you think about this, if you do this for 30 years and get tax-free contributions in, you might have millions of dollars of growth on there. And for every $1 million of growth, you're going to save 15 or 20% long-term capital gains, 3.8% net investment tax if you make over $250,000, and then also state tax. So for the high income people out there, that is going to save you quite a bit of money in capital gains down the line. On top of that, right, you get the tax-free use. You can pull out your contributions at any time. and there's no RMDs. So when you get to the age of 73, you're not required to take this out. But even if you were, right, it doesn't count as income, so it's not pushing you up brackets. It's also one of the best accounts to pass on to your kids. So you pass away, they get this Roth account. Yes, they still have 10 years to distribute, but they don't have to distribute like a pre-tax account and push them up income brackets while they are earning quite a bit of income. You need to understand really that you can always take those contributions out. Like I said, you can take the contributions and the growth out for a few things. You can use $10,000 for a first-time home buyer. You can use it potentially for medical expenses or disability. And then the other thing that you need to know is like, what do you do if you're over the income limit, right? I just talked about low income limits on traditional IRA, a little bit higher income limits on Roth IRA. And this is where the backdoor Roth comes into play. So what I didn't mention when I talked about traditional IRAs is you can always contribute to a traditional IRA. You just can't deduct the contributions. This is how you do the backdoor Roth. You put money in the traditional IRA, you don't deduct those contributions because you can't, you're over the income limit, and then you convert it over to Roth. You need to make sure you do the convert it over to Roth and then invest it, because what people will do is they'll go put money in this non-deductible IRA, they won't ever do anything with it, and now they have this problem where all the growth they pay income taxes on. We don't want that, right? We want the tax-free growth to happen. So you put money in the traditional IRA, you don't deduct it because your income's too high, you convert it over to Roth, you get it invested, you file Form 8606, to track the basis, etc. But one rule you need to know about is the pro rata rule. So the pro rata rule basically helps decide if the backdoor Roth is going to be taxable. So what the IRS says is that you can't just pick what pre-tax IRA you pull funds from. So if you have $7,000 in an IRA that was a rollover that's pre-tax, and you want to do the backdoor Roth with $7,000, the IRS says, whoa, add these two together. $7,000 was pre-tax, $7,000 was after tax. So on this backdoor Roth, 50% is taxable because you have to add these two together. You want to make sure you have no IRAs with pre-tax money in it. The way around this is move it to your 401k, 403b, etc., and roll it in as long as that allows. And as long as you have $0 in an IRA at 12/31 of the calendar year, the conversion on the backdoor Roth is tax-free. How do you know which one to use? To be honest, I almost never see cases where traditional IRA makes sense. I see cases where traditional 401k makes sense for high income earners, but because the phase outs are so low with a traditional IRA, I very rarely see it make sense for somebody to contribute and take the deduction. Maybe if you don't have an employer sponsored plan, you could consider it, just kind of a small amount on the tax savings. I typically see Roth IRAs make a lot of sense for lower income and middle income folks. And then as they become high income, the goal is still reduce taxable income through pre-tax 401k, HSA, etc. But after that, you're left with post-tax dollars. You can either go to taxable or you can go to tax-free. $7,000, I'm going to go to tax-free first, let that grow tax-free forever, and then still do some taxable contributions. But Roth starts to make a lot of sense. Backdoor Roths make a lot of sense for high-income people. But what do you do for your spouse is a question that a lot of people ask me. And so most people don't know that to contribute for your spouse, they don't need earned income. You just need enough earned income. So you need to make $14,000 or above to do it for both of you. And then you can do it for your spouse as long as you're married filing joint. If you're not married filing joint, you do it single, it's a really low income threshold that completely changes this. But just so you know, for a spouse, you can do this for them, even if they're stay at home, if they don't earn an income, etc. You can do the backdoor Roth that way as well, but you cannot for your kids. So all the time people will say, hey, can I contribute to a Roth IRA for my children? You can't. They need to have enough earned income to do it. If they have $2,000 of earned income, sure, you can do $2,000. If they make above $7,000, then sure, you can do it. But it's not like a spouse where just because they're your spouse, they can. With your kids, you can't. But you could technically through this new 529 rule. So there's this new rule, the 529, that if the account's been open for 15 years, then you can convert it over to a Roth IRA tax-free as long as they have earned income and up to the annual limit per year. So basically they could do 5 years of a $7,000 amount after 15 years. So it makes sense for a lot of people to start a 529 when your children are young. And then once they're older and they have earned income, you can help them get started pretty well by moving over from the 529 to the Roth IRA. It's obviously not as good as direct contributions at that really young age, but it still is a way to help get money into Roth. A lot of people will say, I don't want to do this. It's only $7,000 a year, but $7,000 a year can be really impactful. So if I go to a future value calculator and say, hey, for the next 30 years, I'm going to put in $7,000 a year for each myself and my spouse. So $14,000 a year, and that's going to grow at 8% a year. Well, then you're going to put in $420,000 to get $1.58 million. Obviously, this is hypothetical based on an 8% growth rate, but that means you got just under $1.2 million of growth tax-free. That potentially is $200,000 to $400,000 of capital gains tax savings by using this. So even though it's only $7,000, this can be extremely impactful. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and go follow my page for more personal finance content. And as always, if you have any thoughts, please leave it in the comments below, and I promise to get back to each individual comment. See you next week.